Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and, with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Welcome everyone to resuming Nightlight Part 2. Last week the publisher didn't have the author's book ready. Then I was supposed to do a family activity over like a 3-day period, and that got canceled because of the winter storms. So I just took last Tuesday off. But that didn't mean I wasn't working. But so I ended up having about the next 4 months booked. But we have some great guests coming up through the spring. Really looking forward to it. And before we get to all the shows in March, April, May, and about halfway through June, I have to get through tonight, and I'm excited about tonight's panel of experts. Both are return guests. BRIAN SEECH lives upstream from me in the greater Pittsburgh area. We're Yinzers, just like Sherry. BRIAN is a leading Western Pennsylvania cryptid and UFO researcher. He is a regular fixture at the Mothman Festival and many other regional paranormal conferences. Max Hawthorne is the author of the Kronos Rising series. Max lives on the other side of Pennsylvania, it's kind of regional. It's closer to me than Zeta Reticuli, so it's kind of nearby. Max has also turned into a singer-songwriter, and you can learn more about him by going to his website, chronosrising.com. Hi, Brian and Max. How are you guys tonight?
Doing good.
Good. Glad you're here. You there, Max?
Oh yeah, I'm here. I just didn't want to me. I'm trying to be less assertive and all that. But thank you for having me. And in the words of Benny Hill, it is an honor and a privilege. So.
Okay. All right. Let me kind of set up our topic for tonight. If we look at the artwork and documentation over the last 2 millennia and more, the artists depict cryptids. When the YouTube archive for this show is posted tomorrow, you can see the samples that Barbara and I picked out, and be on the scroll. There's a dragon flying over the English Channel in about a 1520 painting entitled Field of Cloth of Gold. A dragon is also mentioned in the Book of Revelation. the Philistines' god Dagon was depicted as a merman, and you get all the like Neanderthal cave paintings have some merfolk on it. Native Americans depicted unusual aquatic creatures. So we have all these documented examples of unusual animals, and a lot of them aren't all ocean animals. You get some associated with rivers, like the behemoth in the Book of Job, inhabited marshes. And every once in a while, you get these YouTube videos that you can find with like a unusual flipper kind of popping up out of the water. What are some of these creatures that we haven't documented? Are they evolving? What, or just samples that we've never seen? So we're going to get into some of these river monsters this evening, and a lot of them are going to be in the eastern part of the United States. Okay, Brian, one of the local archaeological sites that has generated a lot of people writing about it is the Indian God Rock. You've been there. Some of the drawings of it from the turn of the last century discusses a lot of these animals that were drawn on it. You've been there. What can you tell us a little bit about this place? How can you see the animals that were carved on the rocks?
Well, it's Indian God Rock. It is up in Venango County, along the Allegheny River. There has been a lot of vandals doing some things on the rock too. It's right off of a trail. You go off the trail, it's right there. Most of the Indian carvings are towards the riverside, so you have to kind of go down and kind of look at them, and they're a little bit weathered now, obviously. There's one that looks like an archer. There's two that are kind of weird. They kind of possibly could look like a regular snake. And then there's other drawings of other known things also. What they could depict, we don't know. Even like along the Susquehanna River, there's petroglyphs, and there's one looks like a giant bird or a thunderbird, and another looks like a giant snake. Again, I don't know if we can draw a conclusion that they're talking about a serpent or a thunderbird, but one looks like a bird, one looks like basically like a snake. So we don't know exactly what the Native Americans who were living there were trying to depict. So I think that's the one thing with some of the petroglyphs. We don't know exact. You would have to think at first they're just thinking about normal animals that they would see every day, but
like a bear.
Like a bear and things like that. So again, I think you have to be kind of a little cautious too, that we don't know exactly what they were drawing. I know in Pennsylvania we had a legend of a creature, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, called the agua, or the ogua, however you want to say it. It's Ogua. It was sort of a giant, kind of like a brownish turtle-looking animal. The theory saying it was just, it could have been a giant turtle. possibly somebody even suggested maybe this thing was somehow was an alligator that came up it swam up the Mississippi and it stayed for a short period of time, and then legends were spawned and once it's, you get the oral tradition, it keeps going on and on. So that is one here from Pennsylvania.
Okay. The Ogwa is a new term to me, and what you were saying about the alligator, that segues into the petroglyphs that were documented to be in the Weirton, West Virginia, and East Liverpool, Ohio area, and on these rock outcroppings on the banks of the Ohio River and on a couple islands. There are some of these really bizarre animal, one's like a mermaid, it's a hybrid type figure, and I sent both of you my photos of them. And you mentioned possibility of an alligator migrating. One of the copies of the petroglyph does look like a manatee. Max, is there, with all your marine expertise, could a manatee have lived this far north
in the Ohio River Basin, or
yeah,
or the Mississippi, etc.?
Like in the northern stretches of the Ohio River, it's seems like it's too cold up here, but the depiction of this, whatever the artist saw, does look like a manatee.
Well, I looked at the. I assume these are like rubbings or something.
Right.
Based on the carvings and the petroglyphs and stuff. I would say, the manatee thing I'll address in detail, but two of them, in my opinion, are, keeping in mind, granted, Indian God rock is limestone, so that's a bit softer, etc. But even so, we're talking carving in stone, and it does kind of limit, with the technology that the American Indians had, the ability to really do that in terms of metallurgy, etc. But there's two birds that look like they're kind of duking it out a bit and stuff, and I would say those are probably turkeys, based on their behavior and the tail feathers they have sticking up in the back there. Two male gobblers going at it, that type of thing. The one that I mentioned to you that sort of looks like a totem pole, At first I thought that was a turkey, but then I realized it has a branch under it that it's seated on. And if you look at the pattern on it and stuff, to me, it was probably a large, like a red-tailed hawk or something. They have that sort of pattern across the breast and on the wings and things of that nature. The manatee ones, the tail shape, et cetera, was very distinctive. And I, went on to ResearchGate, et cetera, and all. And there actually is, there was a paper out in 2004 by Williams and Domning that detailed Pleistocene or post-Pleistocene manatees in both the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys. They have actual fossils of those, and post-Pleistocene would be anything after 11,700 years ago. So it seems to me, sometimes here in PA, in the Delaware River, for example, we get occasionally an errant whale that swims up stream, so to speak, belugas and things like that. So I would imagine that hundreds or more likely thousands of years ago, even 10,000 or more, that these animals might have had a greater range than they do today, and there is fossil evidence that proves that. I mean, there's not a ton of the bones. They're individual fragments, but it seems to me that during the warmer months in particular, July, August, when the water temperatures are a little more favorable, they may well have swam upstream looking for greener pastures and been preyed on by Native Americans. I mean, a manatee would be, it's like a giant swimming cheeseburger to a hungry predator like a shark or something like that. I would imagine people would think it was quite a mobile buffet and slow-moving and relatively defenseless, et cetera. That may well be what happened. I don't know that would have necessarily contributed to their no longer being there if they were regulars. There isn't evidence of that yet, but they were definitely there. So I would think that one petroglyph does represent a manatee.
Max, I think a lot of the museum curators in the area probably have a consensus that these petroglyphs were probably carved into stone probably after 1450 AD. I mean, so we don't need to go back to like 11,000 BC, but it's just fascinating that maybe these artists were depicting something. Just a few surviving examples of manatees or some kind of creature that still lived up here that has become extinct since maybe 1450, you had you posted on your website today about that stellar sea ape, and the video talked about mammals have the horizontal tails and sharks have the vertical tails. What was depicted in the artwork seems very an accurate depiction of something.
Well, it does have that spoon-shaped fluke, if you want to call it that manatees are known for. And it's very distinctive, so I wouldn't attribute that to something else, to be honest. It's kind of hard to miss. I mean, once you've seen a manatee, and I mean, they're known for being up and down the coast there, so it doesn't surprise me that individuals would migrate. Mating season, food shortages, curiosity. I mean, they're air-breathing mammals. They can, if it's warm enough out, they're going to go where they want, pretty much. And I would imagine in a really hot summer, there's nothing to stop them from going there. The only thing that stops them is barriers like rapids, things like that. But I mean, by and large, but the evidence is there. I mean, it's documented. The Smithsonian has the material to prove it. So we know that manatees were in there. They said they had bones from the Ohio River drainage basin in Ohio, and from the Mississippi River on the Arkansas-Mississippi border. So it seems like between that and the shape of the fluke on the image there, I would bet that manatees were seen by the Indians as they were traveling out there. Whether they were hunted or not, nobody could say at this point. But I mean, I know that they would prey on other things. Like there was a very large alligator snapping turtle that somebody caught not too long ago that was several hundred years old, and it had a stone arrowhead broken off in its skull. And that arrowhead had been in there for like several centuries. So some fisherman with a bow and arrow had taken a shot at this turtle when it was maybe only 100 pounds instead of 275 or whatever, and he wounded it but didn't manage to kill it, and it had this arrowhead permanently stuck in its cranium. So, people get hungry, they want to eat things.
Brian, Yeah. So, Max just brought up some of these animals can travel up and down the waterways until they run into a barrier. And just if it's a particularly hot summer, before the dams, they might be trapped in a pool until the waters rise. In your studies of Western Pennsylvania cryptids, how is the geography, the hilly geography, affecting the movement of, just say Bigfoot or Dogman?
Well, down where you live, and basically up where I live, the Ohio River Valley, you have your rivers going through it, and then you have mountains, or big hills or mountains around them. As far as like the rivers back then aren't what they are today, because we have natural dams and things like that, and rivers that may have been shallow, back then they're shallower. They're a lot deeper now because of dams. So, back then maybe some of these, like he says, a manatee or some other kind of aquatic animal, may or may not have been able to, to go up them. Now, when he was talking about like 10,000, that's something that's not something I really don't know much about. So I can't really comment on that.
But with the rivers, like the Three Rivers area, around Pittsburgh, have you or even colleagues like Fred Saluga had reports where some of these, like the same cryptid is being seen on a regular basis, because it's confined within the boundaries of the rivers or some of the hill ranges.
We do have sightings of Bigfoot all up and down the from all the way from West Virginia here into Pennsylvania. They're not confined as much to the rivers, but a lot of people do believe they do follow water sources, or they're always if it is a flesh and blood animal, it has to drink. Mm-hmm. So there is caves, a lot of caves along from up by you all the way up by us that these creatures probably could hide. I do kind of believe that they do, if you want to say migrate, it might be a term. It's harder for them to be caught if if they're constantly on the move too, and they may follow food sources. Now I know up here where we live in Beaver County, we do get reports of Bigfoot, but they're mainly from say September into maybe beginning of February. It's always in the fall, the fall to early winter, and then they seem to stop. We get very few sightings of Bigfoot, documented sightings. I'm not talking about the ones that have either been documented by another researcher or by our organization. We tend to get them only about 4 or 5 months out of the year.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they're not seen other months of the year. I'm just going by the documented. Like somebody came to an organization and said, "Hey, I saw this, and it's documented that this creature was seen, say here in Beaver County or something like that." There may still be sightings in other parts of the year, but they're not documented. Nobody's coming to us or anyone else and telling us that they're seeing these creatures anytime.
Well,
but those
there are probably less people in the woods after hunting season, around Thanksgiving. But so some of the hunters are leaving out their trail cams. Are they filming unusual things walking through the woods?
The thing with trail cams, there's thousands of them out there, right? If, and I've always kind of said this, is if somebody claims that hey, I caught this on a trail cam, I want to show you. People tend to only show their friends or people, the relatives they can trust or close friends, because if you would follow, say you would go on one of these Bigfoot sites and somebody, hey, I caught this on my trail cam, and they put it up there for everybody to see, a lot of times they're immediately attacked. They're like, hey, this is, you're just getting a part of a bear, or this is somebody in a suit. So if you do watch this field from afar, a lot of people are very shy about saying that, hey, I caught something on my video camera, or my trail cam. And I understand it. I really understand it. I think that I believe that there's some really good footage out there that has never seen the light of day for the general public, and probably for good reason. And I can't, I've got to kind of agree with them in a way, because you're going to get ridiculed. You're going to get attacked first. You're going to get attacked. Hey, show me proof. I want more proof. I think it's a man in a suit. Or I think, hey, you cut part of a bear's back or something like that. So I've always felt that there's some really good evidence on some of these cams, or someone's got some, but they're just not going to show it. And again, I can't blame them.
Okay. Max, since we've been talking about some regional, the possibility of some regional cryptids.
Mm-hmm.
You have had a sighting in Connecticut near Barbara's old house of
Swan's Pond.
Yeah, you're a lake monster. So,
but it wasn't a lake monster. It was hairy and humanoid. So
okay, it was like a bathing Bigfoot, or can you tell us that story?
It was bathing. I think it was either swimming or it was feeding on stuff that it was diving down for or something. But I think I've seen 3 cryptids in my day. One in Pennsylvania. One in Pennsylvania, not far from where I live, which we haven't spoken about, that young Bigfoot, and something else near Philadelphia, which I've never talked about publicly about, and we're not going to talk about it now. But the hairy red thing, as we called it, and this is before many years ago. I think I was like in my maybe late 20s, on the guess. So it's got to be 25, 27 years ago, something like that. But my family, we used to have a house on Candlewood Lake in Danbury, Connecticut. Right on the lake. It was great fishing. Oh my God! And Squan's Pond is a state park that's really part of Candlewood. It's like connected sort of. And the 2 lakes, really it's the same lake, are connected by a causeway, man-made, road that crosses over. It's built up like stones built up with, a little 2-lane highway crossing it, like a bridge. And there's a steel and concrete like opening underneath all that, that for the water to flow through and for wildlife to be able to, swim back and forth from one lake to the other. And we would go there and fish it sometimes. You'd see muskrats and beaver and sometimes, and fish, obviously, and ducks and swans and geese and, all sorts of stuff. carp. But so this one day, like, we were into getting up super early, and I think it was a weekday. I'm not sure, but we got up like crack of dawn, if not earlier, and it had been raining like all night, and it was still overcast and ugly out when we got there, but it wasn't raining, so we didn't care. We were going to fish. And it was me and two of my knucklehead brothers, and we went to the causeway. We parked in Squance and set up shop there. We had live shiners on bobbers, and we cast them out. We weren't catching nothing. And there was nobody on the lake. So that's why I don't remember if it was a weekday or a weekend, but it was pretty early. And I think the fact that, like, if the weather had been bad, probably deterred most people from getting up that early to begin with. And there was no boats out there, nothing, just us. And after half an hour or something like that, the guys got bored, so they decided to go leave that side of the causeway, go up, cross the little road to the Candlewood side. So, they're basically like up the hill and across the street, kind of. If you yelled, you could hear each other. Okay, but
right.
So I'm sitting there and I'm tenacious. I'm like, I'm going to catch a big bass and show these guys. So I'm sitting there, and the rocks, they're like large gray, gravelly. I don't know what kind of rocks they are, but that they used for this construction. But so it's kind of like a little slippery and treacherous. You have to watch your footing on this stuff. And I'm kind of crouched down there, sitting there, and nothing's happening. And then I see something come to the surface. It was pretty far out at first, maybe a couple 100 feet on a guess. I don't know. But it came up. It was kind of dark in the distance, and then it went under again. And then it came up again, and this time it was a little closer. And then it went under again. They're still kind of far. And as it started getting closer, I started making out details. And the thing that kept coming up to the surface was round, like a dome or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was hairy. I could see that it had reddish brown hair on it. And it would come up, and that part of it would be at the surface, and it would go under again, and it would come up again. And then I noticed it would swim on the surface for a little bit. And as it got closer, I don't know if it was maybe 100 feet away at this point. I'm guessing it's a long time ago, but I noticed it was long, and I'm looking, I'm like, what is that? I'm like, it's definitely not a muskrat. It's way too big to be a beaver. I'm like, is that a deer? And I'm looking, and, there's no head sticking up. You know how deer swim, and it was the wrong color, and it had longer hair. And, finally I thought, okay, it's a big Irish setter. That's what it's got to be, because the color looks sort of like an Irish setter that's swimming on the surface. But I'm like, but why does it keep going under? And why am I not seeing a dog-shaped head? It was really bizarre. And then I noticed that at one point as it was swimming, its back portion moved how when you see girls in a mermaid suit and they swim and their legs are obviously together inside that. That's how it swam. It had legs trailing in the back, and they moved together up and down, not like a person doing a crawl stroke or something like that where we're doing flutter kicks, And it would come to the surface for a little bit, and then it would, just a second or two, and then it would go back under, and then it would stay under for, 30 seconds or a minute, and then it would come up again. It was a little bit closer each time. And eventually it was about, I'm going to say 60 feet away, 70 feet away. I don't really know. The water was very, coffee colored, because I guess all the runoff from the rain and what, kind of murky. But, right. And as it got closer, I was like, what the heck is that? I'm like, so I kind of shifted position. I was trying to move up a little bit to see a higher vantage point down on it. And as I did, I dislodged some of the rocks, and they clattered down or whatever. And as that happened, it was near at the surface at this point. It broke the surface and dove fast. And as it did that, it went straight down. I saw its arm come up out of the water, meaning I saw its shoulder, an upper arm, a definite elbow, and a forearm. like that. It broke the surface like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then it went under. And I'm like, okay, I don't know any animal native to this continent that has an elbow, like this. It looked like it was about the size of my arm, but covered with long, dripping, obviously wet, reddish brown hair. And the whole thing was maybe 5 feet long, something like that. It wasn't, an 8-foot, 9-foot behemoth or anything like that. So if it was a young Sasquatch, which I believe it was, it had this round head from seen like coming at it, and it had an elbow, and it was kind of, and legs and all this stuff. It must have been like a juvenile that was out there screwing around, or whatever the case may be. But when it went under, and it could stay under a long time. I mean, it was obvious because it wasn't like it would be under for a while, whatever it was doing. I don't know if there's freshwater mussels down there, or crayfish, lots of crayfish with all the rocks and stuff around, But and then it swam under. I saw like the shadowy form deep down, that it was going through that tunnel that connected the two lakes. Like you could see something moving down there, and I was like, oh man. So I left my rods, put them in free spool in case I got hit, and I ran up, clambered up the top of the road, crossed the overpass, and I ran out to my brothers, who were also catching nothing. And I said, guys, I said, look, right here, right down there. I showed them the other side of this, where the waterway was. I said, this big, hairy red thing is going to come through here right now. Just watch. So they're standing there, and they were all watching, and there was like a disturbance in the water. Remember, the water was really crappy, but it didn't surface. And then about 30 seconds later, maybe, there was on the left side at the shoreline, there was all these lily pads, which are perfect bass habitat, by the way. And there was a sudden disturbance in the lily pads, like something was moving through there. And it could have been a huge fish, striking something or whatever, but, something was moving through there, and that was all we saw. And, of course, they told me I was an idiot, and I was, imagining things and making up stories and, like Brian was saying. Stuff,
Yep.
Brian, have you heard any Bigfoot stories with this reddish hair? If it looks like an Irish setter, that's distinctive red color plus
reddish orange.
They have a long snout.
No, it didn't have a snout. I mean, this thing's face was down. So I when it was in the water, I saw the top half of its head, which looked like a dome kind of. It was like if you're looking at the top of your head, sort of, or something, or part of it. But I did look up, not to interrupt, but I did look up recently, if there was any sightings in there, and there was something that went all the way back to 1918 or something like that, and it said fishermen report seeing hairy wild child in lake. That was what it, and I think back then nobody had coined the term Sasquatch or Bigfoot or whatever at that point. But that's what they called it, a hairy wild child. So something in there had been seen at one point. I don't, but that's all I can tell you. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, Brian, have you had any reports similar to what Max saw, possible wild child?
As far as the color, in Pennsylvania, we have black. Bigfoot are seen black, brown. Even reddish. There have been some reports of these creatures that have reddish type hair, just exactly like he was talking about. There was a report, God, it must have been about 10 years ago, that there was one of these creatures. I believe it was black in color, though, that was swimming in Lake Erie, and somebody had seen it. I think it was near Prescott. They caught sight of it, and then it went under, and I think it did eventually come up the shore really quick, and then it ran into the woods. So, yeah, these creatures have been known to be seen swimming. So that's really interesting, because Max actually saw it, probably up closer than what the person in Lake Erie saw. So that's a very interesting report, Max.
I wish I'd had a camera, I got to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would have been something to see, But we were dumb idiots back then, and you don't expect to see something like that. You're hoping to catch, a nice fish, and then you bring it home to show your dad, and he accuses you of, borrowing that from somebody else who caught it, and you didn't really catch it. Oh, he always do that to us. But it was like, and I was like telling, like, come on, get your rods ready, $20 for whoever can hook the hairy red thing, like trying to like snag it or something like that with a lure. That probably wouldn't have gone over too well. But imagine getting spooled or worse, like, Mama or Daddy Sasquatch come charging over there. Not something I want to see coming at me, let me tell you. But okay, like, Max, where'd he go? He was here a second ago.
Max, you also have a sighting of a fairy, and Brian was
the fairy. I'm sorry. That's what my daughter called it. Okay.
Okay.
So.
Well, I'm quoting her. There could be a more stud muffin term, in your presence, but we'll come up with that term later.
A fairy, something like that. I mean,
okay.
I know I talked about this on like Shannon's show, like I don't know, a year or two back, but yeah, I'll tell you what happened. It was, and I know the date because it's burned into my brain. It was November 22nd of 2016, so like 4.5 years ago or whatever it is now. But it was a cold, blustery eve, as she said in her thing. But it was nighttime because, in November, it's already dark here, probably like by 4:30 or something like that, or 4 o'clock. But this was around 6:30 when this happened, and I had picked up my daughter at aftercare a little before 6. We went to the local Wawa, which I'm sure you guys know what a Wawa is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes! I don't have to explain it! Ha ha! Nobody else knows what a Wawa is. It's terrible. And they're so good. 7-Eleven. But anyway, so we went. We got our grub. Dad, I don't really like cook much. And we came home and we were driving down through this road, through a development with a lot of woods around it, near our house. And I checked the temperatures too and everything, and it was in the like mid-30s at this point. Pitch black out. It was windy, and there were snow flurries, which was interesting, and but the snow wasn't sticking, and I think that's because of the temperature. It had been a little warmer in the day, and it's 36 degrees. It's not gonna, it hits the asphalt, it sort of melts, but it was obscuring visibility and it was a little slippery, so we were being careful. And we're driving along, and we come to this level stretch of road, and there were houses on either side, mind you, even though the woods is, 100 feet to the left and stuff. I live in a very woodsy area. I mean, I had a mountain lion in my yard 2 years ago. Okay.
Wow.
But 4-inch tracks. Imagine you're out walking your dog, and my neighbors have these like sissy dogs, So take the dog here. But anyway, so I got to get out more. My daughter tells me I talk too much, and she's right. So we're driving along. And, I'm being careful. There's nobody around or anything like that. Everybody's safe in their houses and what. And I see something up ahead, on the street. So I said out loud, I said something like, uh-oh, you got like something in the road ahead or something like that. So my daughter was with me, and she was in the car seat on the passenger side. So when I said that, she leaned in so she saw what I saw. And I'm glad because, it was a pivotal moment.
Yep.
If I'd had a dash cam, I'd have been world famous after this. I'm telling you. So what happens is there's this dark thing in the middle of the street, and I'm heading straight for it. So I'm already going fairly slow because it's a neighborhood, there are kids and stuff like that. So I might have been doing 15, and I dropped to 10 as I got closer to this thing, and I thought it was a box, And so I didn't want to run over it, so it could have had glass in it, nails in it, You don't want to get a blowout or whatever. So I was like adjusting my wheels so that I straddled it as I was going to go over it, okay? And I was about, I'm going to say 30 feet away at this point, and the box started to move. And it was windy, like I told you. So I thought,
Right.
this is a flap from the box, and it's the wind is making it push up, But as it turned out, it was something that had been like face down and it was kind of pushing itself upright. And I think that's because it had a 4,000-pound SUV bearing down on it with, fog lights and headlights and stuff, and it was a small creature. So it started to come up, and now I'm just going so slow, I'm barely moving, and I'm maybe 20, 25 feet from it, and I'm looking at it, and it looks up at me, and I see this face. And I'm like, is that an animal? And my brain is going through, like in my first novel, there was this computer system called Archimedes, which if you gave it a sample of something, like an organism, a bone, something like that, it could track the entire animal kingdom and light speed and identify it. And my brain was doing that. I was going through every animal I knew of in Pennsylvania, in the United States, trying to identify this thing. But it had like this grayish, like dark gray face, and the eyes and mouth were black. And it sort of had like some stuff behind the head. I don't know if it was its body or a mane or something like that, but it was like there was like hair or something behind the head. Okay, and it was very angry or upset. Like it had this look on its face, like it was like ah! Like that, like mouth open, like hissing, snarling, something like that. I didn't really see teeth.
You just scared my cat, by the way, just to say.
Oh, sorry. And I have two, as you know, so
Yep.
yeah,
Okay.
they don't respond. But so like so I'm thinking it must have been, I don't know if it was angry or frightened. I imagine it was frightened, like I said. I mean, and it started to rise up, and I'm like staring at it, and I'm like fixated, like what the heck am I looking at? It reminded me sort of like of the homunculus from like the old Sinbad movie,
Yeah.
like it's build sort of and stuff, and then all of a sudden now I'm at a full stop, and it's at most 20 feet from my headlights. Okay, and as we're both watching it, it springs into the air, and it has wings now, and it's like suspended in my headlights, like from 20 feet away, maybe 25, something like that, including the hood. Okay, and
So you're pretty close.
Oh, I was, yeah, and I would say its wingspan was maybe between 3 and 4 feet. It wasn't tiny, it wasn't like a little Tinkerbell thing, and it had 2 sets of wings. They were the same size, and they were long ovals. They weren't like dragonfly wings that have like sort of taper, and then one set, the second set's a little smaller, These wings were identical in size and shape, and they were like these long ovals. And it was like straight at us, like the body was vertical, the wings were out to the side, and it was fluttering. The wings were like vibrating like a hummingbird's at high speed. Like you could see them shimmering like this. And I'm staring at this thing, and I couldn't move. I didn't know what to do. That's why I said if I'd had a dash camera, because there was no thought of a phone. Or, you're looking at this thing, and your brain is like, that's not real. What the heck am I looking at? And when it was, this is another thing. It was weird. When it was on the ground, like I said, it was like this darkish gray. But when it was jumped up, it looked very almost ethereal. Like the wings were transparent except for the edges, which were illuminated, I think because of my lights. And the body looks more like silvery white or something like that. It was like completely different in the air. And I think that on the ground it was camouflaging itself. Like I think this thing in the wind and this blinding snow, maybe it hit like a power cord or something, like a line or something like that, or a phone line or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of houses around there and stuff, and it was like stunned or hurt, and it crash landed in the street. And then it was lying there, and then all of a sudden it's got my truck bearing down on it, and it like I guess it was highly motivated at that point. But and it looked, like I said, it was like this, I don't know if I use the term magical thing, but it was like really something to see. And mind you, it's when I say jumps up and it's suspended there, it was only a couple of seconds. And it was like this, like maybe 2-3 seconds at most. And I went, what the hell is that? And then Ava pointed at it, like her hand and arm moved, and she went, it's a fairy, Daddy, it's a fairy, like that. And then I think it saw her, and it just went woof over the roof of the truck, and it was gone. And it was a very strong flyer. I mean, this thing hauled ASS. I'm going to spell it if I'm not allowed to say it. Okay. And I sat there for a moment, and I'm like, what? Like, I was like, all of a sudden, I was all shaken up. And she was all excited as anything. Because, I mean, she saw a live fairy. And she did. And it couldn't have come at a better time because she was starting to doubt Santa Claus. And I said, well, you saw a fairy, didn't you? So the fairies are real, obviously, St. Nick is. So that bought me some time, And then we drove the rest of the way home, and I pulled into the driveway, and I got out. We walked in, and I was like, I didn't say anything the whole time. I was like muttering to myself. And we got in the house there, and she went to tell my wife, excited about it and everything, and she thought we were making it up and all that stuff. She's like, no, Mom, I definitely saw it. I saw something, I'm telling you. And me, she was like trying to talk to me. I'm like, and I walk into my office, and I sit down on my computer, and I'm pulling up, largest bat in North America, the big brown bat, blah, 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 blah. No. The closest you could come was like the extinct dragonfly from the Carboniferous period, Megaluna or whatever its name is, and this was not a dragonfly. In fact, it was bigger. But so that's what it was. And then stop me if I'm talking too much.
Dragonflies aren't out in November.
In November, yeah.
Yeah, November 22nd. So then what happened after that is, we were I was like, your whole world gets upended when this happens. Like, when I saw the thing in the lake, I had no notion of Bigfoot at the time, what it was. I just thought it was some weird, hairy, ape-like creature and, whatever, out of sight, out of mind. But this thing is now I'm thinking, I felt like that scene in Twilight, where she finds out the werewolves are real. And I'm like, is everything real? Are vampires real? Are zombies real? I'm sitting there talking to myself, But, so then the following spring, it's maybe May or something like that, we decided, because the woods where this happened is very near my house, and we decided we were going to, my then agent, she was giving us this lecture. It's a species called a brownie. They're larger than other fairies. They live in trees in the woods, high up. Usually they share nests with squirrels, etc. This is her talking, not me. They feed on fruit, berries, things of that nature. Blah 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 blah. So I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. I don't think anything. But we decided we were going to try and communicate with these creatures. Got to be more than one, So, we went into the woods. I guess it was maybe a Sunday or something like that, because I remember we were home, and she had school, but it was probably a weekend, and we went into the woods, I don't know, a couple hundred yards, something like that, and we found a perfectly flat tree stump, and we brought a heavy it's like a plastic or something, but a heavy bowl that we had these beautiful Costco blueberries in there, the really good ones. And we sat it there on the tree stump, and I was armed. I don't go wandering in the woods with my little girl without being able to protect myself. Never mind fairies, I worry about the two-legged cryptids, if you know what I'm saying. I don't mean Bigfoot. But so anyway, and I felt a little stupid, honestly, but we tried to talk to them, tell them we meant no harm, and if they wanted to communicate, and sorry about scaring them, and this and that. And then, it was very quiet, and nothing happened. They said, well, this is for you guys, and enjoy it. It's perfectly safe, yada, yada, yada. And so we hiked back out, and we left the bowl there. So the next day she had school, and she said, hey, Daddy, go check the fruit and see if the fairy took it and stuff. So, good old Dad, I, get my act together and I don't know, middle of the day, whatever. I go wandering back into the woods, and I find a spot, and there's no trails around there or anything like that. Okay, the bowl is sitting there in the exact spot where I left it, but it's been picked clean. There's nothing in it. There's no juice. There's no berry stains. There's no nothing. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, well, that's awfully strange. I mean, if a deer shoved his face in there, you would think he would chew the heck out of it, make a mess, and, knock the bowl over, or at least dislodge it, move it, whatever. Mm-hmm. The same thing with other animals.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so when I was on that other show, and I said, so I dismissed it because I figured, okay, so some kids were in here and they ate the blueberries. And then she said, right, because if you were walking through the woods and you saw a bowl of fresh blueberries just sitting there, you would eat them, right? And I went, that's a good point. And then I was like, reminded me of that scene from one of the Shrek movies where he's like, donkey, there's a plate of fresh waffles in the middle of the forest. Don't you find that a little bit suspicious? No. But I don't know what happened, so I took the bowl and I went home. I have like some motion, some trail cams that I'm planning to put out there, and even a way to put some bait up high enough that, deer and stuff couldn't mess with it, and I will probably do that tomorrow, to be honest. But that's what happened, and I can't prove it. I did a drawing of it as soon as I walked in the door. So I mean,
I'd like to see that drawing. If you could send it to me, because we have someone in our group who she's been studying the Fae for all her life, and if you could show me a drawing, she may be able to give you more information on that if you'd want to do that.
Yeah, my book that comes out in April has a drawing of its face. Has the drawing what I drew that day in the windshield when I saw it in the headlights and stuff, But it was an unpleasant looking creature. Well, let me just be clear here. This is not Tinkerbell. This is not some delicate little, like No. I mean, this thing was probably only a foot tall, maybe a little more. I would say its head was about the size of an apple, I guess. Mm-hmm. But, it was fairly large. I mean, like I said, the wingspan was probably 3 to 4 feet. The wings were big. Oh, I didn't say that. But, which is, like, you always see, like, these renditions, and you're like, how, like, what are you, a bumblebee? Like, are those little wings going to carry this body? This thing had wings, like, more like a bird's in proportion to its height. That type of thing.
That's interesting.
And, but I saw its face, and it was an ugly, pissed off little critter. Mm-hmm. If you tried to grab this thing, you were going to lose a finger, or Lord knows what else. And that's assuming there weren't 100 of them watching from the treetops, and all of a sudden, like they find your bones picked clean or something like that. But it was something to see. I mean, I don't know. And you would think, with all the hundreds of trips I've done on the water, on the ocean and stuff, you'd think if I ran into some sort of cryptid, it would be like some plesiosaur or some, or the kraken, or or a hideous mermaid that didn't shave in like 5 years, and she let herself go and became a manatee. But what do I see? A freaking brownie. Now I want brownies. Oh my God, I'm hungry. But, sorry. So there you have it. That's the story.
So, that's interesting. Thanks for sharing that. I'd like to see the drawing, and
sure, Brian.
Please, whenever your book comes out, I'll help you promote it. I would like to get that for our files and check it out.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's okay. It's good stuff.
Max, what's the title?
Monsters and Marine Mysteries.
Okay. And what? So you have several different types of mysteries.
What I did in there, I didn't do the Loch Ness thing because that's been beaten to death and all that stuff. I focused on evidence that I got, and I met a lot of people. I have actual proof photographic proof, first off, that great white sharks exceed 25 feet in length, and there's no denying it. I mean, I've got video of one of my guys measuring bites with a tape measure, fresh bites on whale carcasses, and they're gigantic.
Wow.
And one of my marine biologist friends, gave me photos of a 40-foot whale shark with a 4-foot shark bite on its flank, and it's relatively fresh, meaning a year old or less.
No megalodons, huh?
I don't
No
think this is a
megalodon?
megalodon. I think this is either a mutant white shark or something that's supposed to be extinct and isn't. And my bet in the book is, it's Chubutensis. Now it's Ototus instead of Carcharodon or what, but it's Ototus chubutensis, which was shared the seas with Megalodon and is the original chrono species that it broke off from. And that shark reached up to like 40 feet or darn close to it.
Wow.
And its teeth are more like a white shark's than a Megalodon's. It was more of a predator. It didn't, convert to scavenger stuff. So that I've interviewed people that one guy who saw an octopus started, like a 30-foot section of octopus tentacle started exploring his boat while him and his friends watched.
Wow.
I mean, the list goes on and on and on. People.
Oh, I can't wait for this. This is going to be interesting.
It's some crazy stuff. So, and I interviewed.
Nothing about any UFOs coming out of the water, huh?
No UFOs, but there is one reference to the one down in where is that? Cape Sable, I guess it's near there.
Is that Florida?
No, it's like Canada. There's a cryptid out there that historically people have been calling the Cape Sable Serpent or something like that, and that's not its real name, which is one of the corrections I made in the book. It was called the Southside Sea Monster. But when all these people were attacked by this thing, 3 different boatloads of fishermen were chased by this monster, and and they were calling it the Southside Sea Monster. And then some person from the newspaper supposedly came by, drew what they saw perfectly, and then said, yeah, you'll be hearing from us. And then they put out a fake drawing that was nothing like what they saw in the papers, and they were calling it the Cape Sable Serpent instead of what they were calling it. So it was like some sort of, almost like a deliberate disinformation campaign. So I got the guy, Rodney, I interviewed him. He was great. Who else? Gosh, the guy who was with Gary LaMotta and saw that 38-foot turtle off of I think it was Vancouver Island.
Wow.
I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I really got some. Yeah, so it's good stuff. I think a lot of people are going to appreciate it. And I tried to stay realistic and conservative. When I was calculating shark size based on the bites, I showed different formulas. I went with the most conservative one possible. So I don't want anybody based on the legitimate scientific methods and stuff. I don't want anybody saying, "Oh, he's exaggerating" and stuff. I'm not exaggerating. If I got a 4-foot shark bite, with tooth marks showing it, et cetera, the shark is at least this big, and that's the way it is.
Wow.
So, but anyway, God, I talk too much. I'm so sorry.
No, it was very interesting. I definitely want to talk to you more.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Unfortunately, it is past 11 o'clock, and I got to go tuck in little Miss Muffet, who's been staying up later than she should be anyway. I apologize, guys. I'm really sorry.
No, no problem.
Take care of family, and Max, thanks for being our guest. Brian, we can talk for a few more minutes, Brian. I know you need to get up for work, but Max, what's your website? How do people get a hold of you? And hopefully you can be posting about your book over the next couple months.
They can find me at maxhawthorne.com, MAX Hawthorne, like Nathaniel, no relation. Or like you said, cronushorizon.com. And if they go on the site, there's a paleo gallery that people can check out with artwork and stuff. And there's free excerpts and downloads from some of the books and, all sorts of stuff. Everybody's welcome. And I'm not doing too much of the social media thing these days. I don't have a lot of time. But, readers are, there's a couple groups out there. like the Cronus Rising group and stuff. There are people more than welcome to join and follow, and it's great. And Amazon obviously and Barnes and Noble will have the books. So that's the only books that are out right now is my novels, the Cronus Rising series that you mentioned, and that old expose I did called Memoirs of a Gym Rat. If you're into what really goes on behind the scenes in health clubs. Ugh.
We got to get you come down and speak some year on the sea mysteries down at the Butler conference.
That would be fantastic. It would be my pleasure.
Yep, Butler, Pennsylvania. I don't know where exactly you're at in PA or how long it'll take you to get here, but
yeah, shoot me the info. I'd love to check it out.
Sure.
And
okay.
If you guys want, I'll. In fact, you have my email, Brian?
No, I don't.
I'll make sure
get it from that handsome guy, Mark, right there. And
okay,
good.
Okay, cool.
And I'll you can shoot me the info, and I'll send you the pictures, of the winged critter and all that, and you can tell me what you think. And
I'll try to get back to you with our friend, and be interesting what she tells you. So.
Awesome, sounds like a plan. Well, you guys have a great night, and thanks again.
You too. Okay. Great talking to you.
My pleasure. Bye.
Thanks, Max. Okay. So, Brian, so you don't think the winged creature that Max saw was a sandhill crane?
No, I don't. That's a good inside Mothman joke. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we get a flying humanoid from Max's story. Is there some kind of connection to the Van Meter visitor or Mothman, any of the other kind of flying humanoid creatures that have been documented? Is there some kind of variation?
It doesn't. We all. I think I've talked to. We do research the wing and we call them entities, humanoids, whatever you want to call them. And most of the ones that we've got have been a lot larger, humanoid size, human size. We did get one report years ago from Butler, not that far from the conference, probably maybe 15 miles from the conference, 12 miles. It was of a bat-like creature, a 4-foot-tall bat-like creature that was on a bridge over Lake Arthur Moraine State Park. And when the guy was coming close to it, it actually jumped from the road up on the guardrail, and it just jumped down and flew.
Wow.
It was like late at night. But that was about 4 foot tall. That was a lot bigger than what he said. So I kind of and I'm definitely no expert on the Fae. That's more my wife and our friend Leah's. Once we could see the drawing, our friend Leah could probably identify it, and she would make a great guest on your show. I could talk with her. She can talk about the Fae. It would be a really interesting show for you. So.
Yeah, and since we've spoken a little bit about like some of these river monsters tales, how we ways to identify if they're a mammal or something. Max gave us what the stature of this Fae was, like a foot tall, but the wings were 3 to 4 times the size of the body. That seems characteristic of birds. Many birds do have huge wingspans.
Mm-hmm.
What Max described sounds realistic. I don't know how you explain the human-like face.
Yeah, I don't either. It's I'm very interested in seeing the drawing, and I'm sure our friend will have a lot more information once she sees the drawing.
Oh yeah. Oh,
and I can message you too if you I can hook you up if you would want her on one of your shows. She'd be very interesting talking about the Fae and the
I'm interested in the topic. We had Jacqueline on the show last summer talking about something similar. What's her name? I forget her name. But there is a conference where similar topics will be discussed. Jacqueline Lane, she was discussing things like that over the summer. That was an interesting show about some of these woodland creatures. But you will all things staying on schedule. You do have a conference coming up in April in Butler County, Pennsylvania. People like tonight's topic. Tell us a little bit about this conference, who some of the speakers are, and hopefully get some people out and about this springtime to attend it.
Yeah, it's Saturday, April 24th. It's in a place called the Tanglewood Senior Center, and that's in Lindora, PA. That's in Butler County. It's from 10 to 6, I believe, is the time. It's $15 admission. We're going to have 5 speakers. We have two definites, and then we have 3 others who we're looking to announce, but we can't announce yet. We have Patricia Coleman, a good friend of ours. She's from Erie, PA. She's going to talk about some of her paranormal research. And we also have Zelia Edgar, which I believe you know and you've talked to before.
Mm-hmm. She's been a guest a couple times.
I think she's going to talk about, I think it's about like aliens and clothing or something like that is what her topic is going to be. So,
is that the Flatwoods Monster discussion that she does?
No, I think this is a different discussion, but I can't say for sure until she, gives us the actual title, of which we'll be getting soon. But I'm really, like I said, I've never met her. I've just talked to her the one time on Steve Ward's show a couple weeks back. And really interesting. She knows her stuff. She's done a lot of research, a lot of reading. She's one of the up and comers now. One of the the young breed. She's a lot younger than all of us older people here. So it's great to see that we have younger researchers coming up who are die hard. They're really interested in it, and they think this field needs more of that.
I think she's very knowledgeable, and if you just throw out one example, of cigar-shaped UFOs, she can give it's like which example do you want to hear about? I mean, she really knows the material very well. I think I think when she was a guest last year, I think she has been researching the number of cases with ETs with clothing.
Yeah, and I think that's what
markings on.
Talking about. Yeah, be very interesting. I can't wait to, And again, we're still on schedule for April 24th, providing no more pandemics or outbreaks or more rule restrictions. So we think it's going to be a good one.
Okay. And so, and there are a two or three more speakers that you aren't able to. You're still confirming.
Yeah, Dan Hagman, who actually runs the conference, we co-sponsor with him, but he runs it, and we have to get the exact confirmation before we get names in case something, in case they couldn't make it.
Right.
Or something.
Right. No, I understand. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Dan's very knowledgeable about these topics as well.
Yeah, it'd be great. He would be another fantastic guest. If you're interested, I can get you his info and you can talk with him. I think you would be very very happy with him. If you would, like you said, if you do come to the Butler Conference, we can introduce you to a lot of people. You'd have guests for a long time.
Okay, that's what we need.
Yep.
But all our little group of people from the Mothman, and like Joey and Tanya, and it's Steve,
mm-hmm.
Brent, Rains, that whole group. It's a really supportive group of people.
Mm-hmm.
I really like working with them. So, Brian, is there anything else you want to plug? I know you have to get up early for work, and want to give you a minute to plug anything, and we can wrap it up shortly and call it an early evening.
Yeah, I basically, we're looking for reports of any kind of unknown cryptid, unknown animal. Yeah, even our other group, Q, Center for Unexplained Events, we will take your fairy story, your fae story, any other weird story, time slips, whatever you want, whatever makes up paranormal. Just contact us. We have two Facebook groups. You can just message us through there. Center for Unexplained Events on Facebook, and Center for Cryptozoological Studies, and just message us on there, and we'll get back to you, and hopefully we could talk. And all names are kept confidential. We never give out names, even if you would grant us permission. We still don't like to give out the names. We feel that your story is what people want to hear, your encounter. Because if someone comes forth with an encounter, somebody might say, "Hey, I saw the same thing," and I think that means a lot when you get validation from people you don't even know if they saw the same thing. So, but we are looking for encounters. So just give us just message us.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to Max's new book, Northern Sea
too.
Monsters.
I can't wait now. Can't wait. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a new topic for us as well. So
mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to that. So, okay, Brian, I know you need to get up early for work. So I just want to thank you for hanging on for a few extra minutes, talking about the Butler Paranormal Festival. If they just Google that, it should probably come up. And
yeah, Butler Paranormal Conference. Yeah.
Okay. And
yeah, and I thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I had a fun time. Really fun time.
Great, and we'll talk about having your friends on. I just want to expand into other topics, and it will work out really well. So, thanks again, Brian, and we will be back Sunday with Solaris's show, and just want to thank everyone for listening, and have a nice week.
Yeah, thanks a lot again. Have a good night.